So the story of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was wrongfully sent to El Salvador, is a story that's still developing, and I'm going to be covering today some of the latest developments on it as of the time that I sat down in this chair to do the video. I do believe there is a whole lot of misinformation floating around about this story, and I also believe there's a lot of misunderstandings from people, especially the ones looking to our side and thinking that we're over here trying to defend criminals. I just feel like there's a whole lot of misunderstandings about this story. So we're going to read some of the latest developments, and then I'm going to explain why that I feel this story is important and why that I feel that he should be brought back and gave his due process here in America. But we're going to read here this article from Midas Touch, and this is from Aaron Parnas. This is the latest development. The United States is paying El Salvador to house Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So here we go. We're going to read this article. In a stunning development, Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland confirmed today that the United States government is paying the El Salvador government to detain Garcia in the country's notorious Secot prison, despite the fact that he has not been charged with any crime and there is no evidence linking him to MS-13. In remarks to reports after meeting with officials in San Salvador, Van Hollen said he directly asked the vice president of El Salvador why Garcia remains imprisoned, and the response was the Trump administration is funding his continued detention. So Van Hollen said his answer was that the Trump administration is paying the government of El Salvador to keep him at Secot. The senator, who traveled to El Salvador after a federal judge offered an urgent 2-week inquiry into the government's refusal to comply with the court orders in the case, did not mince words. The Trump administration illegally abducted Kilmar Abrego Garcia from Maryland. This is a lie to cover up what they did. There's no evidence, no charges, no contact. Van Hollen says he asked El Salvador's vice president why Garcia has not been released yet. Why is El Salvador continuing to hold him in prison? He asked. The vice president's reply, according to Van Hollen, El Salvador can't smuggle Mr. Garcia into the United States. That comment comes amid growing frustration from federal judges, plaintiffs, and lawmakers about the administration's ongoing defiance of court orders. According to Van Hollen, there is no evidence that the U.S. is complying with the court's directive to facilitate Garcia's return. The embassy has received no information about the arrangements of his release, and even Van Hollen himself, one of the most senior Democratic voices on foreign policy, was blocked from visiting Garcia or speaking with him by phone. Officials in El Salvador told the senator that a phone call might be facilitated if the U.S. Embassy requested it, but they were not sure whether that can even happen. Garcia, a Maryland resident, was wrongfully deported under the Trump administration's expanded Alien Enemies Act enforcement. Federal judges have since ruled that his removal was illegal and offered the U.S. to facilitate his return. But Van Hollen said plainly that the administration is clearly in violation of the court order. He disappeared off the streets of Maryland, Van Hollen said, adding that he still has no information about Garcia's current condition, health, or safety inside the Secot prison. Van Hollen says this moment is unsustainable, and he vowed that others in Congress would follow. A delegation request from Reps. Robert Garcia and Maxwell Frost is already in motion. A judge has authorized depositions of key officials by April 23rd as the contempt proceedings escalate in federal court. In the meantime, the U.S. is literally funding the indefinite extrajudicial imprisonment of Garcia in a foreign country with no charges, no due process, and no access to his family. As Van Hollen said, this isn't just about one man, it's about the integrity of U.S. law, the separation of powers, and whether the executive branch can lie to the courts and get away with it. And again, this story is still developing. But there are a whole lot of people out there who I believe are misunderstanding our side of this thing. We're not over here rooting for criminals. We're not cheering them on. What we're doing is wanting to see someone get their due process in the United States legally. That's what I believe that he should have. That's what I believe everyone should have. We've already heard Donald Trump talking with the president of El Salvador about possibly sending homegrowns down there. That means people born right here in the United States. And folks, that's completely unconstitutional. I don't care how big of a crime someone has committed. they should be tried in the United States and they should pay their debt to society in the United States. That's not me condoning their crimes. That's not me being okay with their crimes at all. That's just due process, and that's what we should have. But the way that MAGA is twisting this one, folks, is truly insane. The levels they've went to try to twist this. And Jesse Waters, you can always count on him to be the one that will make the biggest fool of himself and spread the most bullshit conspiracies imaginable. And here's one where he's trying to insinuate that because Garcia had on a Bulls hat, that links him to a gang. Take a look at how ridiculous they truly are.
Garcia's a Bulls fan, but he's from El Salvador, and he lives in Maryland, not Chicago. The Bulls lost 60 games in 2019, so why the hat? Can Garcia name anyone on the team? Anyone on any Bulls team besides Jordan? Everyone from El Salvador knows what it means when you wear a Bulls hat. It means you're MS-13.
And the saddest part about all of this is there are people who will see that clip on Fox News and they'll go to work and they'll repeat it and they'll believe it. And that's why that type of media, if you want to call it that, is so dangerous to situations like this. When we're trying to get to the bottom of the story, you got someone putting that ridiculous of a spin on it, and that's only going to appeal to the most uneducated and willfully ignorant people out there, and it's not doing any of us any good. I want to go here to another article real quick and read you some of this, because this is how they're going to spin it, folks. They're going to spin this that we are the ones supporting terrorists, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. We just want to see people have their due process. But I want to go to this article here, and this is from Ken Kleppenstein. I hope I'm saying that right. Trump's counter-terrorist czar proposes terror charges for political opponents. So Sebastian Gorka said today that Americans who are not on board with the Trump administration's immigration policy are on the side of terrorists. It's really quite that simple, Gorka said. We have people who love America, like the president, like his cabinet, like the directors of his agencies, who want to protect Americans. And then there is the other side that is on the side of the cartel members, on the side of the illegal aliens, and on the side of the terrorists. He didn't stop there, going on to say this is a tantamount to aiding and abetting, which he called a crime under federal law. Let's take a look here at this clip. We'll watch this one together, folks. This is exactly how they're going to try to spin this one on us. But let's watch this one together.
The White House now saying Abrego Garcia is a human trafficker. That's what we learned today from the White House press briefing. And again, a judge ruled 6 years ago that he couldn't be deported from this country because he was a gang member. And that judge had fears that he would be targeted by rival gangs in El Salvador. Doesn't that just solve the question right there in itself?
Well, the question is solved, Rob. Good evening. At so many levels. Number one, this individual is a foreign national who came here illegally. So that's your first two strikes. Then we find out he's a member of an organization that we recently designated as a foreign terrorist organization. So 3 strikes and you're out. And it's quite telling that we have Democrats on Capitol Hill, not just the lunatics who are torching Tesla dealerships in acts of terrorism themselves, saying, oh my gosh, the rights of this individual. You mean the terrorist who came here illegally? And that individual who said, I can't go home because one gang that I'm not a member of wants to kill me because I am a member of another gang. Seriously, Rob, if you read this in a fictional novel 10 years ago, you'd say absolutely absurd. This is where we are today. President Trump, Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, Tom Homan are trying to keep us safe, but the other side of the aisle is on the side of the terrorists.
And folks, when you stop and think about it, they have painted us this way for years. Again, I always want to point this out, that this is, real quick, we'll go back to that article in a second, but I want to point something out. This is not a new stunt in the Republican Party. They did this during the Iraq War. The Bush administration did the same thing, saying that if we opposed the war, we were for the terrorists, that we were palling around with terrorists. So this is something that they've done for a long time, but of course they're going to double down on it even more. And we're going to go back here, though, real quick to this article. So, wingnut as his theory may sound, Gorka is not some marginal figure. A senior director for counterterrorism in the White House and a deputy assistant to President Trump, he's currently leading the effort to produce a new national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. So would Garcia intensely partisan worldview be turned into government practice? Well, the Trump administration has already taken the unprecedented step of formally designating a variety of transnational criminal organizations, gangs, and drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. With that in place, all the administration would have to do is turn Gorka's rhetoric into reality, would be to claim that critics of the Trump immigration and deportation policies are providing them with material support. Though this felony crime was intended originally to prosecute direct financial and other overt forms of support for Al Qaeda, the concept which grew to include supposed crimes like providing legal counsel. All of this is taking place as numerous Democratic members of Congress have expressed support for one of the alleged terrorists, former Maryland resident Abrego Garcia, who the Trump administration asserts without proof was a member of the MS-13. Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland this morning even traveled to El Salvador, where Garcia was being reported in an attempt to meet with him after expressing opposition to his removal. But folks, I think the part that we really need to stop and pause here is the way that they're going to try to spin this and use this against us to say that we're over here defending terrorism and we're aiding and abetting. That's absolute bullshit. We want to see people have their due process in this country by the Constitution of the United States. And the bigger story here to me is that Donald Trump is ignoring the courts and saying, I don't have to abide by any of it. Well, we really shouldn't be shocked that he should say that, and the Supreme Court shouldn't be shocked because they gave him immunity for official acts. So how are they ever going to come back now and tell him anything that he's going to listen to them and go, oh, no, all he's going to do is throw it back in their face. Hey, you gave me immunity. I can do whatever the hell I want to do. I have to be able to do this in order to be able to do my job. So we're in for the long haul on this one. This story, to me, is one of the most disturbing stories really of my lifetime because of that it could set the road ahead for all of us. This is bigger than Garcia. It's bigger than your opinions or your thoughts on Garcia. It's truly about all of us, because when you have a president who praises dictators and wants to govern like one, and pretty much is governing like one at this particular moment, and he's talking with other presidents about building bigger prisons to house homegrowns, folks, that is not a road we should have ever wanted to go down in this country. And to me, this isn't about Democrat versus Republican. It's not about liberal versus conservative. Again, it's about a man getting his due process. So we'll continue to cover this story as it develops. And I want to keep talking about it because I think it's one of the biggest stories out there right now, and one that really... When Kamala Harris said that Donald Trump should never sit behind the seal of the presidency again, that quote goes through my head a lot these days, because right here is pretty much Exhibit A as to why he should have never been in, which we have plenty of exhibits before that. But if you needed any more proof as to why he shouldn't be sitting behind that seal, I truly believe that this story right here is one of the biggest examples as to why he shouldn't have ever been allowed back near the office. Because I said it so many times on the channel leading up to the election. He thinks he's got immunity now, and he's not going to listen to courts. He's going to completely ignore them and say, I can do whatever I want to because I'm the president. And then you got Elon Musk saying, oh, we're doing the will of the people through the president. So they will spin this however they can, and they'll find any way they can to vilify and demonize us. The Republicans have always done this. This has always been their shtick. But Donald Trump has taken it to a dangerous new level. And I hope more people will wake up and realize just how serious that this situation is. So, folks, I truly do appreciate your support here on the channel. If you haven't already, be sure and hit that subscribe button. I'm really proud of the platform that we've built here. I always want to be honest and straightforward with you. I realize there's a lot of misinformation going around about stories like this. But at the end of the day, I feel like the main point here is a man getting his fair shake in this world. And it's got nothing to do with anything but that. So that's my take on it. And again, I truly appreciate all of you. I hope everyone has a great week.